Hello students, I welcome you all to this session. I am Vaishali Kikan, and today in this session I am going to start a new subject, that is VLSI Technology. Let me tell you, if you are preparing for your placement exams and if you are aiming for VLSI industry, then this subject is really important. And today we are going to start this subject. We will be starting this subject from the basics and we will be moving toward the advanced concepts of this subject. Okay, so first of all, when I start this subject, we should know what does this word VLSI means. It's an acronym which means the very large scale integration. Okay, so we all have seen one or another ICs in our life. Okay, we have seen the memory chip in our phone, that is also an integrated circuit. Some of us have seen the ICs in the labs as well. Okay, so the VLSI or very large scale integration is the process of creating an integrated circuit by combining thousands of transistors into a single chip. So we have thousands and even lakhs or billions or trillions of transistors are also there on a single chip. If you have to make a circuit using the discrete components, what are discrete components? We all have seen the transistors in the lab. A single transistor is a discrete component. If I have to combine thousands of transistors, I hope you can imagine how much area it will be taking, how much material it will be taking. Okay, so now in the case of VLSI, we are fabricating thousands, lakhs, millions, billions, trillions of transistors on a single chip. So VLSI technology began in the 1970s when complex semiconductors and communication technologies were being developed. During that time only VLSI technology also got developed. If I have to give you an example, the microprocessor is a VLSI device. Before the introduction of VLSI technology, most ICs had a limited set of functions they could perform. But now we have ICs that could perform the functionality of a full computer as well. We have a system on chip as well. Okay, so a computer can be made on a single chip. An electronic circuit might consist of a CPU, a ROM, RAM and other glue logic. VLSI lets the IC designers to add all of these components on a single chip, and that is how we are fabricating a computer on a single chip. It is one of the most widely used technologies for microchip processors, integrated circuit and the component designing, and this is the reason most of the people are now evolving into the information era. They are information workers, they are dealing with the information, they are creating information, they are processing information, they are actually doing all of the work with the information. They are information workers. It was initially designed to support hundreds and thousands of transistor gates on a microchip, which now it around consists of 1.2 trillion transistors on around 46,000 square mm area. So you can imagine how small our area is and how big is the number of transistors. So we can have 1.2 trillion transistors on 46,000 square millimeter area, and still it has the capacity to hold enormous amount of transistors. These transistors are integrated and embedded within a microchip. So the first megabyte RAM was inbuilt on the top of the VLSI design principles, and it included more than 1 million transistors on its microchip die. Okay, so let's discuss the history of the VLSI technology, how it got evolved. So first of all, the transistor was discovered by the ATEs and T. Bell labs in 1947. Then the first single crystal germanium. So we require the single crystal silicon. Mostly 98% of applications are around the silicon. So 98% we require the silicon crystal, which should be single crystal silicon. But firstly, what got evolved? The single crystal germanium got evolved in 1952. Then the single crystal silicon got evolved in 1954. So first IC device was developed by TI, Texas Instrument, in 1958. Then the first IC product was developed by the Fairchild camera in 1961. Then we have Strokalski crystal growth process, and we will be talking about it in detail, and it got evolved in 1918. Then we have Bridgman crystal growth, which is not a very good technique, and mostly Strokalski crystal growth technique is used, and Bridgman crystal growth technique was discovered in 1925. And the diffusion process was discovered by Fan in 1952. Then we have the lithography photoresist process. It was discovered by Andrus in 1957. Then we have oxide masking, which was discovered by Frost and Derrick in 1957. Then we have epitaxial CVD growth. Okay, what are all these things? We will be talking about each one of these processes in detail throughout this series. Okay, it was discovered, CVD growth was discovered in 1957. Then we have the ion implantation technique, and it was discovered by Shockley in 1958. Then we discovered the hybrid IC, discovered by the Kilby in 1959. Then the dry etching process by Irwin, Lemons and Bobos in 1971. Then the microprocessor 4004. I hope you all have studied about it in the microprocessor subject also. It was discovered in the year 1971. So now you can see this is the first electronic computer and how big it is. Now we have our smartphones in our hand and how small they are. So this is the difference between the sizes. Okay, so this is how the IC technology or the VLSI technology has evolved our computer system or the electronics industry as a whole. Now this is the first transistor. This is the picture by the AT and T archive, and this is the first transistor by the Bell Lab, and it was discovered, as I said, in 1947. So these are the inventors of the first transistor. So John Bardeen, William Shockley and Walter Brittain. So these three were the discoverers of the transistor. So this is the picture of the first silicon IC chip made by the Robert Noyce of Fairchild camera in 1961. Okay, so now we have Intel 4004 microprocessor, and this is the picture of the Intel microprocessor 4004 processor. Okay, so now this is the Intel Pentium 2 microprocessor photo. So you can see how we have the close-up of the Intel chip. So this is how our Intel chips are looking like if we see the close-up of this chip. Now the Moore's law. So we have studied about all of the basic histories and the developments. So now coming to the Moore's law, it's a very important law. It was given by the Gordon Moore in 1964. What he observed that in 12 months, whatever number of transistors that I have on the IC, it will be getting doubled. So the number of transistors doubled every 12 months while price keeping unchanged. Okay, so price will be remaining same, but at the same price I will be getting the double of the transistors on the same size of the chip. So now here he said after we observed that it got slowed down in the 1980s to every 18 months. Okay, so initially it was following the 12-month doubling rate, but now it slowed down to the 18 months. So amazingly still correct, and it is likely to keep until the 2010, and we have already observed that in the 2010 this Moore's law was observed. Okay, so that they have predicted for the year 2010, and we have already seen that in 2010 the Moore's law was followed. So here we have the trillions of transistors now. Okay, now but after this time the following of Moore's law will be difficult, because if I have 1 trillion transistors, after 18 months I should have 2 trillion transistors. So you can see here, this is the Moore's law on the Intel's version of the Moore's law. So here you can see whenever I'm increasing in years, so in the beginning we have less difference between the years, and here we have large difference between the years, and we can see that it is following the doubling rate. Now we have various classifications of the ICs. So now we can classify our ICs as SSI, MSI, LSI, VLSI and ULSI. So what are all these things? SSI means small scale integration. So it was popular during the year 1964, and the number of transistors are 1 to 10 here, and the number of logic gates are 1 to 12 here. Okay, then if I talk about the medium scale integration, the medium scale integration, it was actually observed during the year 1968, and the number of transistors are from 10 to 500, and the number of logic gates are from 13 to 99. Then we have large scale integration. It was observed in the year 1971, and here we have 500 to 20,000 transistors on a single chip. So whenever we have these number of transistors, I will be classifying this chip as the large scale integration chip. So the number of logic gates will be around 100 to 9999, so it's 9999. Then we have very large scale integration, and it was developed in the year 1980. So here we have 20,000 to 10 lakh transistors on the single chip. So number of logic gates are from 10,000 to 99,999. Then we have ultra large scale integration. It was observed in the year 1984, and it will be having more than 10 lakh transistors on the single chip, and more than 1 lakh logic gates on the same chip. Okay, so now you can see here we have various technology, and based upon the technology we can have the wafer size. If I am using 0.18 micrometer technology, then I can have a very small wafer size, which is 150 mm wafer size. With the help of 0.25 micrometer technology, I will be having 200 nanometer wafer size. With 0.35 micrometer technology, I will be having 300 nanometer wafer size. So now this is the smallest known transistor, which was made by NEC in 1997. So you can see the picture, and here the size is 14 nanometer. Okay, so now you can see 0.014 micron lower gate width. So you can see here we have created all of these things here in 0.014 micron. So this is a very small size, and now if I have to limit the Moore's law, I will be limiting the Moore's law. How I can limit the Moore's law? According to the atomic size. Okay, we actually need to make a transistor, and if I have to make the transistor, then what I will be having? I will be at least having around 20 to 30 atoms. So with the help of 20 to 30 atoms, I will be making a transistor, and mostly VLSI technology is dealing with the transistors. Okay, so when I have 30 atoms to make a transistor, so the minimum limit would be the atomic size. So the atomic size is in angstrom, so I cannot go beyond the angstrom. Okay, so I can move below up to the angstrom level, but below that it is very difficult to move, because at least 20 to 30 atoms are required to form a transistor. So we can have the final limit, which is around 100 angstrom, or we can say 0.01 micron. Now this is the wafer process flow, and in this playlist we will be dealing with all of the processes like which are mentioned here. Here we have our design. Based upon the designs, we will be making the masks, and these masks are used during the photolithography process. So here we have the photolithography. So this process is a very interesting process, and this is how we can make the diffusion to the selected regions. This is how we can make the base, emitter and the collector. If I am talking about the BJT, I can make source and drain if I am talking about the MOSFET. So here we have the wafers on which we have to do all of the things. Wafers are gone through the thermal normal processes, we require a highly stabilized single crystal wafer. Okay, so mostly, as I said, 98% of time we are dealing with silicon. So 98% of time we are dealing with the single crystal silicon. Then we have other materials like the doping agents. We can have N type of material, P type of material. So all of these things are required. So we will be having the etching process. With the help of the etching process, we will be removing the silicon dioxide layer from the particular place where I have to dope for the base or the collector. Okay, so with the help of examples, with the help of diagrams, I will be showing you all of these processes. So don't get confused. You just need to remember that we all have these processes. We will be talking about each one of them in detail. Okay, then we have the metallization process. Metallization process is used to make the metallic interconnects on our chip. Okay, then we have the CMP, then we have the testing of the microchip, and then we have the packaging, and then we have the final testing phase. So this is actually the full process which is occurring in the manufacturing of an IC. Now coming to the advantages of VLSI industry. So it has many advantages, like the size is reduced. If I am talking about, let's suppose 1 million transistors, so you can imagine how much area it will be occupying. If I am talking about the discrete components, now if I am talking about a chip, it will be very small in size. So you can imagine how much size is reduced. If I'm talking about the VLSI technology, it reduces the effective cost of the devices. Okay, in the case of manufacturing, a lot of money is required for the manufacturing of the chip, but when we are doing the bulk production, it reduces the cost. And now if I'm talking about discrete components, in the case of discrete components, I will be having a lot of material required, because if for the manufacturing of, let's suppose, 1 lakh transistors, I will be requiring that much of substrate, that much of impurities, that much of phosphorus, boron, whatever I am using, that much of silicon. So these things are required. Sometimes gold and silvers are required as an impurity. So now these if I am using a chip, if on the chip I can make the circuits on a very small level, so the cost of material will be reduced. This is how the total effective cost will be reduced. Now it increases the operating speed of the circuit. Okay, so if I don't have any large interconnecting wires, so operating speed will be obviously high. It requires less power than the discrete components, because we don't have the discrete components and we don't have the very large connecting wires through which we will be dissipating the power as the heat. So the power dissipation will be very less if I am talking about the ICs. We can have higher reliability on the ICs as well, and it occupies a relatively small area. Okay, we have already talked about it. Now coming to the VLSI applications. So what are the various applications of VLSI technology that we are witnessing in today's world? Okay, it is used in the various branches of engineering like voice and data communication network. Okay, it is used in the digital signal processing, it is used in computers, it is used in commercial electronics, automobiles, and it is used in medicine and many more applications. Okay, so the applications are very much. So this is how our VLSI chip looks like. I hope you all have seen these VLSI chips. So here these are the references, and you can go through these books and you will be finding a lot of information about the VLSI technology. So here I will be stopping my discussion. I hope you understood each and everything that I have discussed. If you still have any kind of doubt, you can reach out to me. I hope you will be liking this video. If you like it, share it with your friends as well, and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you so much.